Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. Hi, hello, my name is Loey. So I've been out of town for a while and the videos that are going up are a little bit scattered because I pre-filmed a ton before I left, and one of the videos that I pre-filmed was kind of unveiling my beauty space, talking to you guys about how I wanted to make more beauty related content again, doing a get ready with me, just the whole shebang. And of course, instead of that going up first, this is going up first because I have not been this excited, anxious, all sorts of feelings over the launch of a makeup product, and I don't even know how long, if ever. I got my hands on the new Urban Decay Naked Reloaded palette. I waited up pretty much all night for it to launch on, what was it, like the 16th of February? That is because my all-time favorite eyeshadow palette is the Urban Decay Naked palette. Ask anyone that I live with, ask any one of my friends. I ordered literally 10 of these when it was going out of stock on like Ulta and Sephora and Urban Decay. I still have like 4 unopened ones. I wound up giving most of them away because I realized that I am crazy. This is my favorite palette though, and I was kind of shocked to hear that Urban Decay had just decided that they weren't going to be selling it anymore. Hands down, 10,000%, this is my absolute favorite eyeshadow palette, and if it was like I could only have one for the rest of my life, I still think this would be it. So it hit pretty hard when I realized that they were discontinuing it, but I also knew that something else was coming. Intro to Urban Decay Naked Reloaded, which is supposedly kind of the updated, more revamped version of Naked in the sense that it is what kind of the new neutrals are meant to be. Urban Decay, the original Naked, it's more neutral toned, whereas this one, off the bat, is way warmer, which is a lot more in line with current makeup trends. So if you are someone who is really just here for like my paranormal content, or if you are really just here for like my fashion content, this isn't really the video for you. I really wanted to get my hands on this and review it for you guys because I think if you are anything like me and this palette meant a lot to you, this was literally like the first like big girl palette I ever bought, like saved up so much money to buy it from like my first job when I was 18. And if it was just like your favorite throughout makeup, I think that you would also be curious on someone's review and thoughts of this bad boy. So the palette, like I said, has already launched on the Urban Decay website, and at the time of filming this, I don't know if it's still in stock, so I will put a little annotation of whether or not it is still in stock or if it is out of stock, but I know that it hits Ulta at the very least on March 4th, which is also my mom's birthday. The packaging of this palette almost feels like an updated response to the original Naked palette, and you're gonna see a lot of comparison, and that's just because I think that they themselves have pretty much said that this is the reloaded version of the original Naked, and a lot of the shade names and the color choices in this are revamped, updated versions of colors in the original palette. So for those of you who are curious about the shade layout, this is it. Clearly it is much more warm toned than the original Naked palette. They also did a thing in here where these two colors and then these two colors are the biggest pans in the palette because supposedly these will be the ones that you go through the fastest. That is smart, but also I think that everyone's tastes are so different that it's kind of hard to say what colors people will go through. For example, I don't particularly think I will go through Barely Baked nearly as fast as I will go through something like Angel Fire or Reputation. So to each their own, but definitely a new and interesting concept. I'm gonna go through each shade in this palette, then compare it to the original Naked palette, kind of compare the colors, and then sort of state where there are entirely new colors that were never in the original palette, and then I will show you guys my look that is on my face today because I did it using this palette. The shade Birdie is kind of like a light, more pinky toned neutral color. It has a touch of shimmer, nothing crazy. I don't necessarily think you're gonna be able to see that super well on my hand, but here is the swatch right here. It is just a very light toned color, pretty much blends in with my skin tone. It just has a touch of sheen to it. Then we have the color Barely Baked. This is a really pretty gold shade, and it's kind of the first time that I'm even seeing that like swatch or anything. I didn't use it in my look today. It's a really pretty true gold, and like I said, I'll compare later, but it is called Barely Baked. It does seem quite similar to Half Baked, maybe just not quite as intense. It's a bit of a lighter gold. Next we have up the shade Angel Fire, and this is kind of like a neutral sort of champagne color. with a lot of like pink duochrome to it. And I think in the pan it looked really like chunky, but then in application it was super pretty. I think on the camera it almost just seems like a true champagne, at least in the viewfinder, but it has a lot of like pink duochrome to it. Next is the color Retro, and this is a pure matte like peachy coral color. Not really something I've ever reached for in the past. Actually, in swatching, it's a little bit more like of a terracotta shade. Not really a color I gravitate towards that much, but it'll be interesting as I like continue to play with this palette, how it sort of like works with the other shades. Next up is Reputation. It's like a really pretty rose gold copper shade. There's a lot of pigment there. It did apply really easily to the eye area, and there wasn't like a ton of fallout or anything. It feels very buttery and very smooth. Next to it is like the fraternal twin of this shade, which is called Burn. And Burn comes across a bit more reddish in the pan, but actually side by side, it's a lot like browner and deeper. So they're almost like each other's, like I said, fraternal twins. It's like they play really nice together and they complement each other super well. We have this color, which is called Endgame. It's like a true espresso matte brown, and it is really, really, really buttery. There's some of these shades that have a bit of kickback and a little bit of dustiness to them. This one is super buttery and just a very good matte. I was actually going to use this color called Dreamweaver today. It is a really pretty like shimmery taupe. I know I call everything really pretty, but I can't help it. I love eyeshadows. This is a little bit chunky in my opinion, like just in swatching alone, but it does blend really nicely. I sort of wish it was a bit lighter in application. It looks super light in the pan, and then on the hand it looks much more like bronze. I would personally be happier if this was just like a lighter, more taupey shade, you know? We have the color Distilled right next door to it. Another shimmery bronze color. This one is a bit lighter, very reminiscent of Smog in the OG Naked palette, like very, very reminiscent. So these two colors I think really work in tandem as your two sort of like crease and blending colors, kind of those initial shades. So you have the color Bucked and you have the color Boundaries. Bucked is a true matte, while Boundaries for some reason has the tiniest bit of shimmer in it, which is why I didn't even use it initially in my look because I was so thrown off by that bit of a sheen, but then in application it's like non-existent. So Bucked is right here. It's more of a true brown, and then right here is Boundaries, like on my knuckles. It's a truly like super warm orangey shade, while Bucked is obviously a bit more neutral. And then last we have the color Blur, and I really like shades like these. I'm gonna blend it on my hand, but I highly doubt you'll even be able to see it. It's right here. I just like shades like this for helping me blend out the crease and also just add a bit of a highlight to my brow bone. So I've gone through Naked Reloaded and the original Naked palette to really see what, if any, similarities are in them, and I did find quite a few actually. So each bottom swatch is Naked Reloaded, while the top swatch in each pair is the actual Naked palette. So right here we have Birdie next to Virgin. Birdie is much more matte. There's still a bit of sheen to it, but Virgin is actually much more shimmery than I even like ever realized. It was never like a go-to for me in this palette. They're both clearly just kind of light shades, and they sort of accomplish a similar thing, but they are definitely different. Then we have Barely Baked next to Half Baked. This was kind of the one that surprised me the most. I didn't think they were that similar, but they definitely are. So that is Barely Baked, that is Half Baked. Down here we have the shade Reputation next to the color Toasted. I didn't think they were that similar, just kind of wanted to see them side by side. They're very, very different. Then we have this shade right here, and this is called Dreamweaver, and I wanted to put that next to Sidecar, and I don't think they're similar at all. Definitely think Dreamweaver is darker, and Sidecar has a bit more of like a duochrome to it. Down here is Distilled from the Naked Reloaded next to Smog. Smog is clearly much more gold toned, and I definitely think that Distilled is more of a true bronze shade. And then right here we have Bucked next to Buck. Buck is actually so much more cool toned than I ever realized. Like initially when I would ever use my OG Naked, it's actually super cool toned comparatively to Bucked. Those were just sort of my initial thoughts on any kind of comparisons between the two palettes, but now I'm gonna go ahead and get into the look I did on my eyes. I kind of came in already like foundationed and contoured and browed up, so jumping into the eyes, I used the color Bucked and I used that on a MAC 217 just to really lightly like blend into the crease area. Took that on the outer corner up into the crease. Definitely a lot of like kickback on that shade, but there wasn't really any fallout on the face. There was just a lot of kickback in the pan. It blended really beautifully. I thought that it looks really pretty as an initial crease color, but then as I was staring in the palette and I saw the shade Boundaries, I was kind of like, sort of wish I had used that first instead of Bucked. So I went into that next and just used that to really lightly sort of blend out the edges. And I really felt like after I used those two colors and blended and blended and blended, I had a really, really nice defined crease. I thought they looked really pretty. There was no patchiness. They were super easy to blend, also really easy to build up. So then after that, I felt ready to go ahead and move into my actual like eyelid. I used the color Reputation on the center of the lid, kind of working out to meet the browns in the outer corner that I had already placed down. It was a little bit more like warm toned than I initially was expecting. I think I was expecting maybe more of a true rose gold, and it's a little bit more orangey than I even like noticed. So after that, I went ahead and I applied the color Angel Fire into the inner eyelids. And this color is really pretty. It works really well with the shadow. It's just not a shade I would normally reach for, I think. But I really did like it, and it definitely was a unique add-in to my look. Keep in mind, after each and every step, I'm blending to high heaven. Like, it's not like I'm just sort of like placing these colors down and then walking away. I'm blending and blending and blending. But I went ahead and I worked underneath my eye area, and I took the color Bucked first, just on a little tiny pencil brush, and then I blended it using the color Boundaries. Definitely felt like my under eye area looked really smooth, no patchiness, it didn't get raccoony. The colors were super easy to control, and again, there was minimal fallout, if any. I put the color Bribe in my very inner corner of my eye just for a little bit of a highlight. It wasn't quite as shimmery or as shiny as I normally like, but it got the job done, and I wanted to only use this palette, so there you go. And then I used the shade Blur to kind of like blur, no pun intended, out my crease and also just add a pop to my brow bone. After that point, the eyeshadow was pretty much done, and I went ahead and just did my black liquid eyeliner. And then before I did eyelashes or anything, I moved on to the rest of my face, and if you're curious about it, I used the Papa Don't Peach blush from Too Faced, as well as the Milani highlighting trio in the shade Rose Glow. And that's kind of just like my current go-to to a perfectly like done face. At that point, I moved on and I applied mascara and then lashes. Lately, I've been using the Ardell Demi Wispies, the Studio Effects ones, and I think they are just stunning. I think they are literally the most beautiful eyelashes in the entire world. I'm obsessed with them. I use them 24/7, I feel like, because they are just enough. They're not like crazy dramatic. They're not crazy thick. They're just perfect, and they look perfect with everything. And then for my lips, I did Kylie's Candy K lip liner, and then I followed up with my friend Shannon Rose's liquid lipstick. It's from IGXO Cosmetics, and her color is called Cake, and I've been using it lately. I really like it a lot. It is just a really beautiful liquid lipstick. And then that was my full completed look. Forgot to mention, I also added a little bit of just nude liner to the inner rims of my eyes. Overall, on Naked Reloaded, I really enjoyed my experience with it. I do feel like I got a really pretty look out of it that is a little bit different to my everyday, but also not vastly different. I do feel like I kind of follow a bit of a formula when I do my makeup, in terms of I really like a nice shimmery lid, a nice defined carved out crease, and then I like a strong inner corner. I never do anything crazy on bottom. I make it nice and like neutral smoky on top, so I did feel like I could definitely achieve that with this, but there were some sort of different tones in here that I normally wouldn't really gravitate towards. If you were to ask me what my like everyday look normally is, it's more shades like these on the crease than something like Sin on the actual eyelid, and it's that simple. And then if I want to get crazy, I use Toasted instead of Sin to like really like make my eyes more smoky, and then I'll always add Sin on the inner corners or something. So this was a lot more warm toned than what I would typically think for like an everyday makeup look. But I'll also be the first to admit that I do play with warm tones a lot, and sometimes my everyday makeup routine does look like more of a warm, true, like bronzy brown in the crease, and sometimes it does look like more of a stark champagne on the eyelid. And I think probably in the last like year or so, I have gravitated away from this palette more and more as my absolute everyday, and I always come back to it. But I do think that my makeup preferences have changed, and I think that that was what Urban Decay was really trying to respond to with this palette. But even so, it's not a replacement for this, in my opinion. It was clear to me, even just watching between the two palettes, that the formula of Urban Decay shadows has gotten so much better, and they're so much creamier, and they're so much easier to blend, and they're so much more pigmented. But it's still not a replacement. There is still what I believe to be a genuine like need for this palette. Something that I believe OG Naked had going for it though were that there were these sort of like deeper shades out here on the very outer corner you could do a true black smoky eye with. You know, you could play with different shades of bronze in the palette between Toasted and Smog and Dark Horse even, and Hustle is more of like a purple tone. Like, I did feel like there were so many different tones in this palette, and that was what made it so unique and so revolutionary. Whereas this, if we're being totally honest, like I haven't played with it or anything, but using my own formula for eyeshadows, I couldn't see myself doing that many different things with this palette. And maybe that's my own problem. Maybe I'm just not adventurous enough, but I think that a lot of people are like that, where they sort of have a set idea of like how they like to do their makeup, how they like to formulate their eyeshadow looks, and I just don't think that there's that terribly much versatility in this palette, comparatively speaking, to the OG Naked. That is something I have run into with every Naked palette except the first one, where I feel like I'm pulling out the same looks every single time. With the OG Naked, I did feel like it would look different, in my opinion, depending on what I was using. These colors are different, but they're so similar. You know, you kind of have this warm little trio right here. You have your like standard, more shimmery neutrals, this one being a little bit more matte. You have 3 brown colors here. I really like these 2 colors a lot, and I really like Blur. I think that it's really important to have like a matte sort of brow bone color, and that one works for me. It may not always work for everybody depending on your own skin tone. Overall, I like it a lot. I think it's a really good palette, but I think that it's kind of a hard original palette to follow up. And I do not believe, while I think that it was like a good response, I don't think it is a replacement whatsoever. I'm looking forward to like continuing to try it out though. And that's really all I had to say. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video from Loey the Beauty Guru. If you did, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I love you all so very much, and I will see you in my next video.